We're going to call the meeting to order. This is the Township of Springfield Zoning Board of Adjustment meeting for March 15th, 2022, regular meeting. Adequate notice of this meeting has been given in accordance with the Sunshine Law. Notice was published on September 30th, 2021 in the local source, the official newspaper for the Township of Springfield for the year 2021, and posted in the Annex Building on October 1st, 2021. Notice was also posted to the Springfield Township's website. Stand to salute the flag, please. Okay. Mike, if you could do the honors of roll call.
Roll call. Mr. Stephen Hochstein. Here. Mr. Mark Cunningham.
Here.
Mr. Daniel Poltrock. Here. Mr. Steve Hirschbaum. Here. Mr. Rod Sadat.
Here.
Mr. Matthew Glass. Mr. Michael Weckstein.
Here.
Vice Chairman Harris Slaufer.
Present.
Chairwoman Jody Cohen.
Here.
Quorum.
Thank you. Okay, the first item on the agenda this evening, we'll call application 2022-1 for 2 Pine Lane, block 3901, lot 6.012. This is a request for a bulk variance for a garage conversion. Do we have the applicant here? You can come up, please. Do you have any other witnesses with you this evening?
No.
Okay. Do you want to swear him in?
Yes. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth?
Yes.
Can you please keep your voice up so we can hear you?
Yes.
Thank you. Give us your full name, spell your last name, and give us your home address.
Ronak Vakil, last name V as in Victor, A-K-I-L, and the home address is 2 Pine Lane, Springfield.
Thank you. Could you just tell us a little bit about what you are looking to do and the request that you're making?
Sure. So as I get started, actually, there's a few pictures which I'd like to share with the board as well.
Okay.
Can I maybe...
Yeah, we're just going to have to put them into the record. So we'll mark them, the pictures, Bruce, as A1, applicant 1, and then you can share with the board. Do you want to describe them before you pass them?
Well, the first picture is that of my daughter, and then the second picture is about the space that I'm just about to describe. Just so that you have a visual to what I'm just about to describe as well.
Okay. You could bring them over.
So again, good evening, everyone. My name is Ronak Vakil, and I've been a resident of Springfield for more than 15 years. In fact, the last time that I've been in this room was in 2009 for my marriage civil ceremony. So it brings back memories. So the reason why I'm here is because we have an 8-year-old daughter, Anika, who has special needs. So she was born with a genetic mutation that has impacted her development of her cerebellum and pons. So as a result, she is unable to sit independently, stand, walk, talk, or express herself. So she's extremely dependent on her parents, that's us, and caregivers for all activities of daily living, including feeding, toileting, showering, etc. And she currently weighs about 58 pounds. Our house has no bedrooms or a shower facility on the first floor. And carrying her to the second floor bedroom, where the bathroom is, on the steps is clearly a hardship for us. Currently, I'm the only person who carries her up and down the flight of steps. However, that too is becoming increasingly difficult. And I also worry about the scenario if I'm sick or develop a backache or if I'm away for another emergency. So there's literally no backup for me at this point. We've evaluated a stair lift, but that doesn't meet her needs, and it's not a safe option for her because she does not have sufficient stability or general awareness. So in order to meet her needs for the long term, we are requesting to allow us to convert the garage, which is an attached garage, to a bedroom that accommodates her equipment, hospital bed, Hoyer lift, and a full bathroom that is a shower and a toileting facility that is wheelchair accessible on the first floor. The plan for the proposal is part of the application. The property has a driveway which is approximately 30 feet long and can accommodate 4 cars. We have 2 cars which can easily be accommodated in this driveway without the need for additional parking elsewhere. I think with that, I'd like to stop. And again, thank you very much for considering my application.
Thank you.
Chair, just if I might, for the record, there were 7 pictures marked as A1 through A7.
Thank you. Can we clarify the request that would be made under the ordinance from the board?
I could, Section 35-23.2A does mandate that the house have a garage. So by converting it, there'll no longer be a garage. So it's a bulk variance to allow variance from the requirement of having a garage with the house. If the engineer or planner need to add anything currently.
Thank you, Bruce. Okay, any members of the board have any questions for the applicant?
Yes. Sir, does your house get water when it rains?
Does it get water?
Does your house retain water when it rains?
No.
Okay. That was it.
I have a question. So you're taking the 2-car garage and converting it? Is there any way to do it with the single bay of the garage to get what you want and leave one usable bay of the garage?
Yeah, so we did think about that. So again, the proposed room will be wheelchair accessible, and also we need space like for her equipment, the hospital bed, and a Hoyer lift. So we do need a space which is a little more than what a typical bedroom typically is. And we do intend to keep a portion of the garage, which is towards the interior wall as storage, because that's also the access to the HVAC unit and things. So essentially, one portion of the garage, we intend to kind of convert to a bedroom. The other half of the garage would be essentially the bathroom. And then there will be a little bit of space that will be remaining, which we'll use as a storage facility.
I have a question for the board attorney. Is there a way, if we approve this, that if the house gets sold, that it has to be converted back to a garage, and that, or does it go with the?
I think it probably would be within the authority of the board to do that, to make it specific to this owner.
Thanks.
Actually, one other one. Would you be agreeable to that requirement that if you sell the house, that it has to go back to becoming garage?
So I think the only thing that I want to point out is, again, this not only is a physical hardship on our part, but it's also a substantial financial hardship as well. So then having a requirement to kind of convert things back, will kind of impose an additional financial hardship on us in terms of cost.
Madam Chair, may I? Mm-hmm. Sir, when did you buy this house?
In 2018,
And your daughter's 8 years old now, right?
that's correct.
So when you bought it, she was about 4?
Yes,
Okay. And your house, how many bedrooms are on the second floor?
4.
And I understand the mechanics of the difficulty, as you explained, with respect to your daughter, bringing her up and down. How many people live or stay in the house for a significant period of time during the year?
Well, we are a family of 5, so my wife, me, and 3 kids, right? That includes Anika.
All right. And do you know how much square feet your house is?
It's approximately, again, I don't recall the exact number, but it's about 2,500 square feet.
I'm sorry?
About 2,500 square feet.
About 2,500. Okay.
But again, that's a guess, right? So
All right.
it's a guess on my part.
And the drivers in your house right now are you, yourself, and your wife, I presume?
That's correct.
And your other children, how old are they, if you don't mind?
They're 4 and 2.
4 and 2. All right. And your garage, I just have to confirm this, it's built on a slab, correct?
That is correct.
Do you have a below-grade basement?
No, there is no basement in the dwelling.
So the whole house is built on a slab, or ground
That's
level? And the first floor is on the ground level?
That is correct.
And your water heater, your furnace, these are all on the first floor?
That is correct.
Where would these be located in your house in relation to the livable space?
So again, I think so maybe if I can describe this, the HVAC unit and the water heater are towards like the center of the house, and then there is a 2-car garage. And what the proposal here is to have the bedroom on the exterior wall, right? And then the toileting area would be near the on the anterior side of the house. So the space that is remaining between the toilet and the current entrance to the 2-car garage from the inside, we would kind of leave as is, and that would essentially be the access to the HVAC unit. So there would be a little bit of a space, between the utilities and the proposed bedroom.
Now, you mentioned HVAC, you mean the blower, not the actual air conditioning units, right? Because the units, I'm looking at your survey, I see 2 air conditioning units outside of your house? It looks like,
That is correct, yeah.
so the HVAC unit, you mean the blower and the furnace,
Yes.
right? Okay. And
So I think essentially what I'm trying to say is that there's going to be, as we intended to, quite some space between the blower and the proposed bedroom, so that it's not very noisy for her.
now, but the blower, the water heater, are they in the garage? Or is it a separate unit right on the inside of the interior wall of the
That
garage?
is the second.
Thank you. I understand, by the way, I appreciate your submissions. After your survey, it looks like you prepared a document that says proposed space renovation. Do you see that?
Yes.
There's a handful of lines that are drawn, and it seems like they connect to circles. What does that represent?
So I think in full transparency, we had like a contractor draw this, so it wasn't like me personally. But then as I understand these, the circles represent lights, overhead lights, and the lines represent wiring. So it's like an electrical diagram that's shown here as well. So actually, if you look at that, then if I could explain, the previous question as well, I think where it says the existing mechanical room, so that's where the entrance to the HVAC unit is, right? So it's like a door, and that's where both the hot water heater is and the HVAC unit.
So you said garage doors to remain?
Well, that is one of the proposals again, because that would again, the proposal again is that they would kind of the exterior of the house would kind of be, would remain kind of
Would look
unchanged.
the same, but on the other side of the garage doors, there would obviously be insulation and sheetrock?
That's correct, yes. So I think as far as like the details of that, again, what, I'm not a contractor, I don't know anything about building. So I think if it's okay with the board, maybe, I think at that point, if we are moving forward, we can kind of present a proposal, during the permitting process.
Just so you know, in order to present any plans to the town, they have to be done by a licensed architect, not by the contractor. So a contractor is not allowed to prepare plans.
Okay. But so this is submitted on behalf of the applicant, right? So on behalf of me.
I'd like to know on paragraph G of your application, you say that your house has been approved by somebody, that this process that you're trying to bring before the zoning board at this point has received approval from some entity. Can you specify what that means and what that's about?
Well, I think all I intended to kind of mention here is that this dwelling is part of an approved like overall plan, right?
You were not a party then to anything,
That is correct. Yes.
and nothing was caused to occur by your lawyer at the time that your property was purchased by you and your wife.
Can you please clarify the question? Sorry.
There was nothing that was caused to be done in anticipation of your purchase by anybody or any entity in your closing process.
That is correct. Yes. There were no action items there.
This is a planned development?
This is part of the Oakwood Homes behind Boychik Stone.
Okay.
And so this applicant, I'll pass this around, it's the Google Earth. The Google Earth doesn't even go in front of their house, so that's why it's angled. It's the last house on Pine Lane, backs up to Briar Hills Circle.
No.
Excuse me,
Yeah,
Derby,
right,
North Derby, South Derby, sorry.
yeah.
This shows the garage doors that
And I have some more questions, Madam Chair, if you permit.
Yes, please.
On your first floor, there's no bedrooms, but how many kitchens do you have on the first floor?
Just one.
How many dining rooms do you have on the first floor?
Just one.
Do you have any living rooms, family rooms, bathrooms? Can you tell me what else is on the first floor?
Well, so again, there's a family room, and then there's a living room. That's pretty much
Do
it.
you have a bathroom on the first floor?
I
There
think
is
that
it's like a half bath, sorry.
I think that it would help the board if we saw a first floor plan for the interior.
I do have that with me here.
Yes, thank you.
Madam Chair, I'll point out, there's probably a homeowners association set up for that entity. So if there's any exterior changes, it would probably have to get a granting of approval from
So
their board. I don't know if they.
I just wanted to clarify that point, that there is no homeowners association. So
No.
we are not part of any HOA.
Okay.
There was none formed, so.
This is the applicant, so it's A8.
Just for the record, the first and second floor plan will be marked A8. And the picture, which was produced off of Google Earth, will be B9.
B1, no?
I said, can we make a copy of it maybe?
Right.
Otherwise, we're each individually going to be looking at this one. for quite some time. No, I'm not. I just.
He's dead.
There's only one to view, so. Sorry.
Yeah.
No. Take your time.
What's over here then? Yeah, that's what it wants to do.
Have you, I'm looking, if you don't mind, Madam Chair.
Yeah, please.
So I'm looking at A8, which is floor plans. I see near the front of the home, there's a bathroom, the half bathroom, and near the back of the first floor is the kitchen, both of which means plumbing presumably is really accessible to both of those locations. Have you considered putting the room for your daughter in perhaps a different place as opposed to into your two-car garage?
Such as?
So anywhere where it would be convenient to put a full bathroom? Or that way it doesn't encroach upon, at least almost fully, your two-car garage?
So again, I think, I just wanted to clarify, right? So again, the answer is yes, we have considered a lot of different permutations, and nothing really works. We are a family of 5. Anika's siblings are 4 and 2. We are a growing family, and we do have space needs. Also, I think, just keep in mind, that Anika needs a lot of equipment, so she needs a wheelchair, she has a walker, she needs an activity chair, and again, the idea is not to have Anika in her room all the time, right? So the point is that even in the living space, we do need that space for her to actually move around in the house on the first floor.
Would you be willing to accept the condition if we choose to approve this of converting it back into a garage if we ever sell the property?
I do plead my case that I think it's going to impose additional financial hardship. However, I think if that is the final decision of the board, I guess, that's the best we can do.
One more question, just from a practical standpoint. You don't have a below-grade basement. You have a two-car garage. Where do you store what do you use for storage in your house?
Storage of what?
Anything. Like you may have lawn equipment, you may have shovels, you may have a lot of things that most people have, a garage or a basement or an attic or a shed. I don't think I saw a shed on your survey either.
Right, there is no shed. And I think, in terms of like the total amount of storage, yes, I guess, we don't have a basement, that is correct. But on the other side, we don't have as much equipment either, right? Equipment in terms of the ones that you described. For example, yes, we do have a shovel, but, some of that, I'm currently just putting it in either the attic in the off season, or when I need it, it's in the utility closet, right? So.
And just to be clear, you don't have attic stairs, you would have to have a pull-down
That is correct.
ladder, right?
Yes, yeah, there's a pull-down ladder.
Do you have a lawnmower?
No.
Snow blower?
No.
Okay.
So I just wanted to make the board aware that this is located in the AH-17 zone, which was specifically created for this development and to create affordable housing. The regulations for the AH-17 zone actually revert to the S60 zone for parking, and the statute that Mr. Bergen had referenced as far as the requirement for a garage only requires that one of the parking spaces be located in a garage. So I understand that the applicant is seeking to convert both garages currently, but really only they're exceeding the requirement in the AH-17 zone. So it's really a request from the one space. And I also just want to note, and just in my own opinion and my own take on the application, the garages are intended to fulfill, obviously, per the zoning regulations, a garage for a car. I understand that normally, sometimes they can be used for storage, but sometimes, residents don't use them. So I think we should probably confine this to looking at the variance as far as how it will have an impact on potential parking for the use of the single-family home, rather than talking about storage space, because that's up to the homeowner to do. The other thing I will say is that as far as putting in a condition that they revert back, that would mean making improvements only to rip them out later. And as someone looking for a house myself, I will say that when you look at a home with handicap accessible facilities, like handicap accessible bedrooms and bathrooms in an unusual place in a house, it's hard enough to sell that house and to get people interested in buying that house on its own, let alone have the condition that they'd have to halt the CO and do all this work before they decided to sell their home. And so that's, a stressful enough of a situation for both the seller and a buyer. So I just want to put that out there as far as being friendly to the residents of Springfield and looking at the future for this. It may be something that's a little overwhelming and a little burdensome for the applicant.
Thank you, Catherine.
I have a question. Have you considered looking at plans to bump out from the back of the house to add space on, rather than utilizing a garage, but actually maybe pushing out a room off the back of the house as an alternative than, utilizing a garage space for a room?
So we have considered that. Unfortunately, I think, there's an easement at the back that really limits, how much space is available for any such proposal.
There's also only about a 25 foot.
Yeah, it's hard to tell from them.
But yeah, there's a buffer easement 25 feet from the back that goes to the back patio. That would probably restrict any development from expanding the home.
Again, I think, just from my point of view, I think, the intent, the purpose and intent is kind of clear, right? I mean, the purpose here is not to kind of do additional development of the property or any of that sort. This is clearly a exceptional situation that we have. It truly is a hardship, right? It's not just in the technical sense of the word. I mean, I do carry her up and down at least 4 times a day, and she is only getting heavier. Honestly, yeah, I mean, I do, request, that you please consider this in the overall scheme of things.
Chairwoman Cohen, I just have one question for the applicant. Mm-hmm. And I just blanked on it, so give me 1 second. Mm-hmm. Does your development allow on-street parking? Parallel parking along the curb?
Well, there are designated spots, but as I mentioned, we are not part of the HOA per se.
I just mean the development in general. Are people allowed to park on the street? Are there no parking signs?
There are designated spots, and people are expected to kind of park there.
Okay. And you have your own designated spot, or it's just first come, first serve?
It's first come, first serve.
Okay. I just say this because, one of the questions was you have children that are younger now, but in 15 years will be eligible to drive. And that doesn't necessarily mean you're gonna have more cars, but I think knowing the applicant's situation and the changes he wants to make to his home for his own family's quality of life will probably impact decisions in the future to either purchase or not purchase cars for the future children and when they have more drivers in the home. And I'm trying to just couch this in, what should the board be looking at? The parking concern.
Right.
Is this going to create a parking issue? And that's really, I think, the purview here of what the board should be looking at as far as the removal of a garage.
Can you only put 2 cars in the driveway, or can you put more than 2? If you go
It's
front to back?
it's a 4-car driveway, right?
4-car, yeah, driveway.
Just one thing, living very close to you, I'm on Albert Court, right off the Derbies. We've recently gotten water, so I would ask that you waterproof everything, and I would, want to put that in a resolution. Thanks. Other than that, I'm good.
Any other questions from the board?
Not for me.
Are there any members of the public that wish to speak on this application or have any questions on this application? None. Okay. Given that you have the ability to fit the 4 cars in the driveway, that you do have a difficulty in placing this in any other part of the first floor, or developing your property further in the back, I would approve the application with no conditions. If the board is in agreement, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
I'd also like to add, you should thank our planner for helping your case.
Thank you very much. I sincerely appreciate it. Thank you.
I believe that was Vice Chair Harris-Laufer,
Yes.
Daniel Poltrunk,
Yes.
Mr. Cunningham,
Yes.
Mr. Hochstein,
Yes.
Mr. Furstenbaum. Yes. Mr. Sadat,
Yes.
Mr. Weckstein,
Yes.
Chair Cohen.
Yes.
I think I called one too many, but the point is, you're good.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your time.
The next application that we're going to call is application 2022-2, 158 Short Hills Avenue, Block 609, Lot 25. Request for a front yard variance for a portico. How are you?
I'm good.
Okay, good evening.
Hi.
Do you have any other witnesses with you this evening?
I do not.
Okay, thank you. We're just going to swear you in.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth?
Yes, I do.
Please state your full name, spell your last name, set your address on the record.
Douglas Engler, E-N-G-L-E-R, address 158 Short Hills Avenue.
Thank you. Tell us a little bit about what you are looking to do.
I am looking to add a portico over my front stoop to cover my front door. I've been in Springfield for a long time, and for all that time, we've had a very large, very nice red maple in my front yard, but provided a lot of shade to the front of our house. The tree got diseased, and we had to cut it down, and we learned last summer that without this tree there and the sun bearing down on the front of the house, we can't even use our front door because the handles get so hot. So we've discussed various options. We thought of getting an awning, and my wife always wanted a portico, so we thought that would be a solution to our problem of the heat. And it's also an aesthetic thing, because we have a center hall colonial. If you look at our house, it looks very bare in the front. There's 2 windows in the front. So this will be above the stoop. And I don't know if everybody has seen the plans, but it's going to be a semicircle around, and it's going to add a lot, I believe, to the curb appeal of our house in particular. And I happen to live next door to a house that's been abandoned for like 8 years, and it's kind of run down. So I think it's going to help impact the entire block by just adding a little bit to the front of our house and solve our hot door handle problem also.
Thank you. Any members of the board questions for the applicant? Okay. Any members of the public present have any questions for the applicant or wish to comment on the application?
I have a quick question.
Oh, yes, thank you.
Thank you. The stairs going up to the portico, is there going to be a landing?
No, it was, well, we just had to, if you look at, I don't know if you've seen all this stuff, but we had a round semicircular soup that got cracked and we got water in the basement, so we replaced that with a rectangular one. So this is going to sit, like the front legs are going to sit on the front front step of the stoop. And then, you know, it comes out about 5.2 feet, I think I saw on the drawing. So we need, that's where our setback is right at 30 feet, so that we're using for the variances to pull, because of this extra 5 feet that we're bringing out.
And when you go up the stairs, there's going to, once you get to the top step, there's going to be no landing before you get to the front door of the portico, right?
There's not going to be a door on the portico. It's just going to be, it's just going to be the columns, and it's going to be open. We're not going to enclose it. Yeah, it's just an overhead thing.
Thank
yeah.
you very much.
Yeah. Just also to help with the rain when it comes down, you want to go in the front door, so.
And your lot coverage is not changing, you're just.
Oh, no, it's just,
You're
yeah,
just
yeah.
putting a
It's
roof over what's there already.
Right, yeah, yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, I'm just going to open it up to the public one more time that you had some further questions and answered. Any members of the public present that wish to speak or have any questions on this application? Okay. I'm in favor of granting the application. I think it's de minimis. It's a 3-foot deviation. Results in a 3-foot deviation, and I think it's going to beautify the property, and I don't think it's going to cause a detriment to any of the surrounding properties. So for that reason, I would be in favor. If the board agrees, motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Roll call?
Mr. Cunningham.
Yes.
Mr. Laufer.
Yes.
Mr. Hochstein.
Yes.
Mr. Poltrop.
Yes.
Mr. Ursicbaum.
Yes.
Mr. Sadar.
Yes.
Chair Cohen.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
You too.
Okay, the next application that we're going to call this evening is application 2022-3, 5 Shadow Lawn Drive, Block 2003, Lot 7. This is a request for a rear yard variance for an addition on the property. Good evening. How are you?
Good evening. How are you?
Good, thank you.
My name is Abraham Bornstein, and together with my wife Sharon, we live at 5 Shadow Lawn Drive.
Okay, we're just going to swear. Will both of you be speaking?
I'll be speaking, unless she thinks I made a mistake.
Okay.
Why don't we swear you both? Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth?
Yes.
Okay. If you'll each state your full name, when you spell your last name, state your address.
Yes, my name is Abraham Bornstein, Bornstein, and I live at 5 Shadow Lawn Drive, Springfield.
Sharon Bornstein, Borenstin, and I live at 5 Shadow Lawn Drive in Springfield.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so walk us through what you're looking to do, please.
Okay. Let me just give you a little bit of background, if I may. It'll take a few seconds. We moved into Springfield in 1978. We bought our first house on Hawthorne Avenue. We had children. We had to get a bigger house. We bought another house on Twin Oaks Oval, and the children got bigger, and this house became available in October of 1987, and it had a pool. And it was a little bit bigger, and so we bought it in October of 1987, and we have been living there ever since. Since that time, we have made no change other than minor cosmetic changes to the exterior of the house. We haven't built anything. We haven't changed the pool. We haven't done anything. And in fact, During the time leading up to the hearing, some questions arose as to whether we had in fact made changes during that time. So I brought with me a picture. I have several pictures, but this picture is of me at 40 years old in the backyard, showing the house structure exactly as it is now. That's 1990.
Thank you. All right, we'll mark this into the record as applicants 1.
Thanks for giving more than one copy.
Yes.
I have a
Appreciate
colored
it.
copy if you want to see a color. Since that time, we have made changes and improvements to the interior of the house. A quick description, it's a 3-level house. There's a full basement, and then 3 steps up is the main floor, which is where the changes that we're speaking of now. And there are bedrooms on the top floor. We have made improvements, as I said. We made new bathrooms on the bedroom floor. We put in a generator. We've upgraded the electrical unit. And we've done different things on the inside, some cosmetic. Every single time we did anything, we always got permits. We always had it approved. Everything was done in the appropriate way. So now, I'm going to bring you to a little bit of a change of life. We now come to last year in the winter and in the spring, and my wife and I are about to have our 50th wedding anniversary. And
Congratulations.
Thank you. And we have 6 grandchildren, and some of our friends are moving out. They're downsizing, and we decided, you know what, instead of doing that, we're going to finally get a new kitchen. We have to change the kitchen. We changed the kitchen once, maybe 20, 25 years ago, and we had an incident at that time, as we're talking about this, where I'm walking in the kitchen, and one of the kitchen cabinets is so old, it literally, as I opened it, fell off the hinges and almost took my head off, and we said, we have to have a new kitchen. But we had to have a professional person do it. And so we hired an architect. We have a person who's designing the format. And they told us, you know what, your kitchen is not appropriate for your needs. Because the reason we're staying in Springfield and not downsizing and doing those things is because our house is the center for our family. Everybody comes to our house from all over New York, New Jersey, Baltimore, Florida. When we observe Jewish holidays, when they come to our house for the Jewish holidays, we'll have 15, 18 people in the house. We have a lot of bedrooms, and the kids will double up. They'll sweep on the floor, whatever. And the kitchen is not really capable of properly accommodating all of these people. We have a kosher kitchen, and we don't have enough space to make the food, to store the food, to do all the different things. And so the designer suggests, you know what, you have a deck outside the house. Let's use the deck to build a wall, put a roof over it. Let's not expand the physical size of the house, and let's make the kitchen bigger. Let's make it more comfortable. There's a tiny bathroom on the first floor. Let's take that tiny bathroom and expand it. Make it more comfortable so more people can use it. So we start to put together plans, and lo and behold, we learn that the setback of the existing walls and corners is approximately 24 feet, a little bit different, and the setback is 30 feet. I never would have dreamed of such a thing because visibly we're very private. The neighbors are very private. And we learned that there's some type of pre-existing use which has a setback issue, 24 feet instead of 30 feet. So in my natural reaction, I say we've got to be grandfathered, right? Something has to happen in that respect. And so the designer designs the plan whereby they're going to build the kitchen extension over the deck and redesign it. So what I'd like to do is to offer up a series of photographs so I can give you an idea of what it looks like now and how we are not going to increase any coverage on the ground, and we are not going to increase the setbacks. I'll take you through them as soon as you're ready.
I think it's going to be 2 through 10.
change is, are they on the back of the cul-de-sac? Or
Yes.
closer to Mizell Avenue?
No, we are the last house in the cul-de-sac.
There's a house, which I would call in back of yours or alongside of yours, known for, well, they like their music. You're next to them.
I didn't hear what you said, I'm sorry.
There is a house in back that I would, I don't know the address, but I do know they like their music.
Oh, yes, there is that house behind us. They're behind our pool.
You're next to that house.
Where the
Sort
pool
of around the side of it.
Right, the pool is next to them in the back on that side, and they're behind that. And they like their music, that's true.
And one other question, you are nowhere near the water easement that's in back of that property?
I can't speak to it. I'm not familiar with there being an easement there for water. But I will tell you, this is part of the discussion, that when Hurricane Ida came, it completely demolished our basement. And since Hurricane Ida, with permits, we put in French drains all over the place and new sump pumps. And right now, the engineers tell us that we are going to be the driest house in Springfield because of all of this. So the question of water
requires another prayer.
That's for sure. But we went from 1 sump pump to 3 sump pumps, and we put in all these drains, and there is actually a new drain. If we look at the first picture, you see over here is a garage door. To the right over here, you won't see it yet, there's another 2-car garage. This whole space over here will not be changed or occupied or anything. So this is where the deck is on top. We'll have better pictures here. So here's the deck. This is a garage door, and there's a drain over here in front of the garage door, which did not exist a few months ago until we put it in when we installed all the French drains. This is another photograph of the space we're going to build. Here's the deck. There's a door into the kitchen. The deck is basically useless. It doesn't get sun. It's just useless. We've never gotten use out of the deck. The garage here, as you see, we basically have used for storage all this time. So here's even a better picture of the kitchen. Here's the deck. The plan is to build out from the kitchen, which is over here, out here, to the deck area and back. As I mentioned a few times already, no increase in the usage, the coverage, the setback, anything like that. I took this picture to show, this is our fence in the back. Over here, there's a shed. We have very good spacing between us and the neighbors behind us. We've never had any issues with any of our neighbors ever about anything, even the one with the music. You leave them alone, they have a good time. Okay, this picture is designed to show how much space there is, even though it's 24 feet. The garage, that's the 24 feet, is over here in the corner. You can't see it yet. And all of this area is open. We have these, I'm guessing they're arborvitaes, and it's completely open, private, secluded, quiet. Here's another picture of the backyard from the corner of the setback area. Again, it's a very large area, very well wooded, very well treed. This is yet another picture showing the garage and the deck. And again, I want to emphasize, even though I've said it a few times, this area over here will not be filled in or changed in any way. This is another picture from the garage and where the deck will be from. And this is the same thing. So I guess that is all these pictures. However, I also have color pictures.
Just while you're bringing those up, just for the record, the historical picture, the first one was A1. The black and white pictures concerning the outside and the property were A2 through A10. And how many color pictures?
Are these the same black and white photos in color, or are these different photos that you're putting into evidence?
No, they're different than the ones I'm giving you. The ones that I produced, I wasn't able, I didn't have enough time really to make them.
Okay.
But these are in color. These are all the same for the board, so it's fine. So here we go.
through 10?
Yes.
In this picture, you can see to the right is the,
No, just one.
two-car
This is
garage.
this- okay, 11.
I guess it's 11?
A11?
Yes.
Yeah.
Color pigment is A11.
I'll see if I'm saving one this time. I'll see if I'm saving one this time.
And the setback occurs right here in the middle of the picture where you have this little fold. This goes to the right, this goes to the left,
That's-
and the 24 feet is from here to the edge.
Great.
We're not increasing it, as I mentioned, and we're hoping that will not be a problem. I just have
Do you have anything else that you would like to share with the board?
We only have one more picture. It's a little bit of overkill, so it's really up to the board, but it's one more picture of the deck.
Okay. We'll put it in the record. This is going to be A12, right? Yes. All right.
I know the plans have depicted all of these things so that the board is aware of what we're saying. I just wanted it to be a little bit more graphic with the pictures.
We appreciate that. Thank you.
So the basic idea is that we want to extend the kitchen. We want to increase the value of the house. We have been told by realtors and appraisers that the value of the house, and it's a very nice house, it's at the bottom of the cul-de-sac. There's a very, very elaborate house right next to us on the left, which was completely built up. The value of the house has been severely held back in value because we don't have an adequate kitchen for such a large house. The house, in terms of square footage, and this is also a guesstimate, is approximately, let's say, 3,900 square feet, not including the basement. The basement is another guesstimate, maybe another 1,800 square feet. So the house is a very substantial house with an undersized kitchen, and the kitchen is not big enough for our needs, and it's not big enough for our day-to-day usage, and it's not big enough for our family, and we want to stay in Springfield until we have to be carted away, and we want to be able to be very comfortable. And as I said, I know that we have submitted plans and we've tried to answer questions, so I'm here to try to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much for that very thorough presentation. We do appreciate the visuals because that helps everyone get an idea of what you're trying to achieve here. I'm going to open it up to the board members. Do you have any questions for the applicant?
Briefly.
I have a question. So just to be clear, the only variance you're looking for is a setback into the setback. There's no building area or height or anything like that? It's strictly that?
Yes, and as a layperson, I'm looking for the same setback that exists now.
So the rear yard setback is remaining the same, so it would be an existing non-conforming. The lot coverage, there was a previous or pre-existing. It's over, and they're actually reducing it, but it would remain over. So we would continue, if we were to grant this, we would be continuing that variance as well.
I would just like to point out that it is a very uniquely shaped lot, and we can see that the fact that it's not a rectangular lot and it has caused an issue with the setback.
Yes, thank you.
From a technical standpoint, it's just massing in the rear yard setback. There's no two-dimensional exacerbation, but there's a three-dimensional.
Thank you. Question?
Yes. I appreciate you providing your title insurance policy. It lists restrictions and other easements aside from what's set forth in the survey. Do you know what those restrictions or easements are for?
I am under the impression there are utility easements.
And those would not be impacted, just to be clear?
Not at all.
Thank you. And the restrictions, those are probably not...
Well, they may be 2 or 3 feet from the rear of the property. We can't build over the rear of the property, to my knowledge, but we're not getting close to that.
And that's what the restrictions in the title insurance policy is?
Again, that's a guesstimate from a long time ago, but I think I'm correct when I say that.
Thank you.
Any other questions from members of the board? No. Okay. Any members of the public that are present that have questions for the applicant or wish to speak on the application? None. Again, thank you for a thorough presentation. I feel that this is the overall lot coverage will be reduced. He's not expanding the existing deviation from the rear yard setback. It will, again, beautify the house, and I don't think it's going to cause any detriment to any of the neighboring properties. I'm inclined to grant the request if the board agrees.
Motion to approve.
Thank you.
Second. Mr. Sadat.
Yes.
Mr. Poltrock.
Yes.
Mr. Cunningham.
Yes.
Mr. Hochstein.
Yes.
Mr. Persicban.
Yes.
Vice Chair Laufer.
Yes.
Chairwoman Jody Cohen.
Yes.
Application is approved.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everyone. Have a good.
Enjoy your new kitchen.
Thank you.
The next application to be called this evening is application 2022-4, 263 Milltown Road, block 1901, lot 20. It's a request for addition on the property with seeking a lot coverage and side yard variances. Good evening, how are you?
Good. Good evening. Good evening, board.
You have one witness this evening with you?
I do. I have my architect.
Okay. How are you? Excellent. We'll swear you in.
Mr. Wood, raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth?
I do.
Please state your full name, spell your last name, give us your home address.
Terrence Wood. Last name is W-O-O-D, 263 Milltown Road.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And can we have your name, please? Why don't we swear you now? Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth? Please, again, state your full name, spell your last name, give us your business address. And just talk into the mic so we can make sure it's recorded.
Thank you. Jonathan Caputo, C-A-P-U-T-O, licensed architect in New Jersey for 11 years. Practice is located in Long Hill, 1842 Long Hill Road in Millington.
Thank you.
Mr. Wood, tell us a little bit about what you're looking for, what you're looking to do on your property.
Certainly, certainly. I am fairly new residents to Springfield. Moved to Springfield from a hillside in 2019 with my wife and my two kids. We came here obviously to seek better living in the area. I am a youth minister for the church in Newark, for a large congregation in Newark, where I've been there for over 22 years as youth minister of that church. What we're looking for is we are looking to enhance our kitchen. As mentioned, we have we're actively involved from a church standpoint and family standpoint. We're looking to enhance the size of the kitchen to small house and small kitchen in retrospect, which does not accommodate the utilization that we're intended to use it for family functions, for church functions, for the youth that often I bring to my house. We're looking to enhance the size of that to be able to fulfill the needs that we're looking to take care of. What I was told is that we're running into a setback situation in the rear left portion of the house where the kitchen will be added to, in addition to a lot coverage issue that we'll be running into as well.
Thank you. Okay. Members of the board, questions?
Would you like me to?
Yeah, you could come up. If anyone had questions for the applicant before we moved on. Okay, so.
Real quick, just
Yes.
to confirm, the water this is not usually my question, but do you have like a water mitigation proposal for, or is your architect going to testify to that?
That's correct.
I'll save it for him. Thank you very much.
That's correct.
Before we do that, can you just give us the benefit of your background, boards that you've testified before, your license is current?
Yes.
Qualify you.
Okay, yes. Licensed architect for 16 years, 11 in New Jersey. Testified in front of the board of the planning board of Long Hill Township, Board of Adjustment for Long Hill Township, Madison, Union. This is my first time here in Springfield. Is education important?
Is your license current?
My license is current, yes.
Okay. Do any members of the board have any objections to qualifying Mr. Caputo as an expert in architecture?
No objection.
Excellent.
Okay, great.
You may proceed.
All right, thanks.
Walk us through this technically.
Thanks for hearing us tonight. We appreciate your time. Mr. and Mrs. Wood are looking to add on to their existing kitchen. I've included on the sheet labeled floor plans. A plan of the existing superimposed on the plan of the new. So what we found is their kitchen is about 10 feet by 8 feet. And in this type of residence, traditional split level with bedrooms on the what we call the second floor. The kitchen and the living room are on the mezzanine, and a den and an office are located at grade to the right of the house. We are proposing to extend the kitchen and dining room area directly to the rear with 10 feet of built space and an additional 6'4" of covered deck. Under the 10-foot portion of the kitchen, we would like to excavate, and where Mr. Wood would like a full basement. We on the left side of the existing house, there's a current nonconformance with the side yard. I believe that is 8'7" at the front. We would like to continue that side yard encroachment for the full length back to the end of the roof. But the real issue that we're willing to address is the lot coverage. We are proposing to increase from 36% to 39.95%. This is a fairly small minimum size lot. It's quarter-acre zoning. We are right at the 75-foot width. And like many houses on this street, the applicant is constrained by the current layout of the split level. It was built as an economical choice on a very narrow lot to add a third floor, and at this stage, the only way to expand is to the rear. So he would like to, Mr. and Mrs. Wood would like to expand the kitchen as proposed, and they also realize that there is both an existing and a proposed lot coverage overage, and the applicant has also proposed to manage the stormwater in any way that the board and the township wishes. We aren't presenting a final plan, but we are open, correct me if I'm wrong, we're open to dry wells, seepage pits, some sort of retention, and if this application is approved, we'd like to work with the town to come up with that solution. We would run our gutters and leaders into that dry well if that's what was proposed, and we would also size that to catch the existing nonconformance that we have. So we would want the ultimate solution to cancel out and mitigate the overage over the 27%. So that's what we're requesting at this stage.
Thank you.
Chairwoman Cohen, can I ask a question of the architect?
Yes,
quickly?
you may.
The coverage amounts that you just testified to, I don't think you gave specifics, but I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, there appears to be some miscalculation of the after addition, in that you are asking for more coverage than I think you actually need by your addition. So your existing coverage is 3,129 square feet. The change column shows 359 square feet, and after addition shows 4,520, which doesn't compute. So unless I'm missing something,
let's run through those again. So I see where you're seeing it. So the existing coverage is actually 4161. If you tabulate those numbers. Did the copy that the board was provided with show 3129?
the one that I have, yes.
Okay.
So maybe it's incorrect.
So we would like to amend that to the 4161.
Okay.
With an overall change of 359 for 4520.
Okay, thank you. I just
Okay.
wanted to make sure. Thank you.
So, in percentages?
Yeah, and I have that in percentages too.
Yes, please.
The existing is 36.77% for lot coverage.
Okay.
And the proposed is 39.95.
Thank you.
And the applicant and his professional did come into the engineering office. We laid out the plans, we did discuss where we would put the seepage pits in the rear yard area. So conceptually, we've addressed it, it's just formalizing it on paper.
Thank you.
Can I ask, it's hard to tell what's there now and what's new. Is that asphalt area and all the pools around, is that all existing now? Or is that going to be added? It's hard to see.
That's existing. The asphalt area is existing. What other area did you mention?
Well, there's a pretty large pool deck around the pool deck. And
Yeah,
it's hard to know from your survey of before and after what, is the only thing that you're adding just the addition on the house? Everything else is existing?
That's correct.
I'm sorry, just for the record, the board that you're referring to, the plot plan that's there, is that part of the record before the board?
The photos are new.
So why don't we mark the entire exhibit as A1, but with the understanding that the pictures are really what's new?
Just make sure the mic can pick you up.
There's one right over here too. If you're using the ledge, you could just turn that one on by hitting. That might help.
Okay. Yes, I just wanted to concur with the applicant, homeowner, that the basketball court, the pool, the patio, the walkways are existing.
Were they all there when you moved in, or did just something you added?
No, they were added. They were added during COVID. During COVID period, we added those.
So,
But the pool,
permit for that?
the pool existed.
No,
The pool existed.
the pool, yes, yeah, the pool was there, not the asphalt area. It was not there.
And so when you added that, you went over the allowable coverage without a permit to do that asphalt?
That is correct.
So, okay.
What is that asphalt area for?
That's a basketball court.
Okay, that's what I thought.
So during the COVID period, which, going back to your point, that I didn't know in reference to doing that was done by some of my youth at the church who during the COVID period, didn't have anywhere to go. We were on lockdown, and what we do is I actually do youth devotions, and I wish I had brought some pictures in here where I bring the youth there, and we have devotions in the back. We sing, we pray, we just do a variety of different things. So during that period, we just implemented a variety of different things where we enhanced the yard so we can have somewhere for them to go during COVID. And obviously, the intention is to continue to do that in reference to bringing them in that area. So, unbeknownst to me, it was something that I did not realize that I was doing. Was ignorant in reference to the I think you call it impervious coverage or something of that nature, which they told me, and I didn't know that was the case. So that's what we're trying to rectify right now, specifically with the seepage pitch, I assume, in terms of bringing that back into, compliance.
Two questions. Your new numbers are inclusive of the basketball court, right?
I believe so.
And is that half court or is it smaller?
It's very, it's very small. It's not even. All
right.
It's not even a full half court. It's smaller.
Take a shot from the top of the key.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Is it enough? Is it enough for a high school three?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Barely
Okay.
before you fall into the grass area.
Okay.
Is that court lit up at night?
It can be. It has a light on there that you can plug in at night. Just goes directly down onto the actual court. It doesn't illuminate around and disturb any of the neighbors based upon where it's located.
Oh, I'm sure you'd know by now if it did.
So I got
Sure you know by
problems
now
there.
if it did.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Any other questions? Yes, Bruce.
Thank you. Just to clarify, you have the plot plan proposed shows the side yard setbacks of 8.9 feet on one side and 8.7 on the side that you're going to construct on. And then your chart on the following page has 8.9 and 8.8 as the setbacks. And I think the application says 8.7, or 8.9 is the existing. So
I'd like to check the original survey, which I don't have, to make sure that that 10th didn't show on the back corner. But if
yeah, because the 8.7,
it looks,
that's on the plot plan is not the same as the 8.9. You're asking for the variance.
we're asking for the 8.7, which I understand, I take to be that the surveyor assumed that the front left was the closest corner to the lot line. We can change that to 8.7.
I would suggest
that for the variance. So that's to the.
And I would also, so that the record is clear, the bulk area calculation page, there have been a couple changes, and maybe you could submit a final version to the engineering department just so it's corrected in the record, the percentages and the areas as well as the setback, just so we have a complete. Thank you.
Do you have a floor plan of the first floor you could show us?
A floor plan.
Like to show what actually you're building inside?
I think that's in there, right?
Well,
Well,
there's actually, there wasn't a plan.
we have a partial.
We have a survey. We don't have a plan. I think the real question is what's being added. Where is the addition falling in the house?
Right. Do you have like a,
Yeah, do you have?
On the last page of your,
Of the application, or?
Yeah.
It's this.
okay,
here we
all
go.
right.
The only-
I'm sorry, here
Okay,
we go.
we didn't include the entire house.
No, that's fine.
Because
I
they're-
didn't,
So it's just.
Yeah, this is only that
Yeah.
mezzanine level. So you can see on the left is what he currently has. And the back of the existing deck is roughly in line, more or less, with the line that we're proposing for the new covered portion. And just wanted to note in the photos, the neighbor to the left actually has the two-story portion of their house abutting that side. And our construction would actually be in front. The end of our construction would be in front of the back of the neighbor's addition as well. So we're cognizant of that space and not blocking their windows or being visible from their backyard.
I have a question for the town engineer about the water runoff and, with Ida and all these other things, we've had all these problems in Springfield. What is your professional opinion about this amount of coverage?
well, you're at 39.95 essentially as a proposed condition, which encompasses the new things that they're asking for tonight, plus the catch-up of what happened 2-3 years ago. The seepage pit can be designed to accommodate that. So from the strict numerical, you can capture that runoff and coverage and get it into the ground. And not in the flood zone. The tree streets halfway or 1/3 of the way up is where the flood zone truncates. So still a runoff issue, but you can collect it and manage it. There's also the visual component of coverages and how close they are to other things.
So in your opinion, there won't be a negative impact on neighbors as far as putting water
The
on?
runoff can be managed from the size of the stormwater facilities. And they've committed to do that. And on the plot plan, they actually show a seepage pit in the center area where basically in between other coverages of patio and walkways.
Any other questions from the board? Okay, I'm going to open it up to the public. Do any members of the public have any questions for the applicant or the witness, or wish to speak on the application? None. I'm in favor of granting the relief that's being requested this evening. 8x10 kitchen, it's tiny. I mean, I think the space is needed. I think it's clear that so long as the applicant is in agreement, and he has said that he is, and a condition is put on that he's going to work with the township's engineering department to mitigate the runoff. I don't think there's going to be, as our engineer find, any detriment to the neighboring area. So I'm in favor. Members of the board?
Make a motion to approve.
Thank you.
With the condition?
With the condition.
The conditions of the stormwater management.
Correct.
Mr. Cunningham,
Yes.
Mr. Saddah.
I did not second, but I will.
Oh, I'm
yes.
sorry.
It was Mr. Poltruck.
Oh, Mr. Voltruck.
Yes.
Multitasking here. Mr. Hochstein.
Yes.
Mr. Furstenbaum. Yes. Mr. Saddah again.
Yes.
Vice Chair Lever.
Yes, great project.
Chairwoman Cohen.
Yes.
Application is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lots of luck.
Good evening. Yes. Members of the public that are here, I know that you've been waiting a while, but we are going to just take a 5-minute break before we begin the final application, which is the Chick-fil-A application. So we're going off the record at 7:26. Let's try to be back at 7:30.
We're going to make room and we're going to bring Jay up because
Yeah.
with the traffic, he's probably going to be talking more than us.
I could just sit back too if you want.
I'm just gonna scoot, we'll make room.
Sure. How are you? You know, I feel for that. I was really like surprised that you some bored. Me too. Sometimes people ask, like the guy after the asked, "Oh, I need a bigger kitchen." Everyone's just like, "Okay, yes."
I know.
So I was like, well, I didn't advocate that he like needs it. Would you do it in the way that says like?
I posted on my Facebook.
Better to come back knowing that we've already.
Just figure out the best place for you. Yeah. You and Mr. Wood, and then figure out Oh, then I can take that, yes.
I'll keep it where it's at. Thank you.
Yeah. You don't want to take it with you?
Steve Firstbound.
He's leaving. He's recusing himself.
Oh.
I brought the computer because I didn't see the revised December one in a paper format, so I figured there was minor.
The revised what?
The revised traffic from them was in December, but I think I only had it electronically, so
Oh, okay.
I figured I better bring the computers.
Oh, yeah, December 28th.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. Good, good, good.
Longer. It's ridiculous. You know what, I just sat down and see what they're paying for. I'm like, how much money I spent on
It seems like a big give.
We are back on the record. Excellent. Is it on? Okay. So the final application on this evening is application 2021-29, 240 Route 22 West, Block 3701, lots 8 and 10. This is a continuation of the Chick-fil-A application for preliminary and final site plan. Good evening, how are you?
Very good. Madam Chair and board members, members of the public, and board professionals, Stephen Hale representing the applicant, Chick-fil-A. Yes, this is a continuation of the hearing, and just let me, just because it's been a couple of months since our last hearing, a brief overview of where we stand and what was submitted, and as usual, I'd like to thank Mr. Disco for a detailed recap of...
Steve, just forgot, for the record, board member Fursuck-Baum has recused himself and is not present.
Yes, thank you.
Forgot to do
Thank you, Mr. Bergen. All right. Again, yeah, Mr. Disco did a report dated March 11, 2022, which gives an overview of the most recent submission. But just, again, by way of background, we were here in November of last year with our initial presentation. John Martinez, who is seated here this evening from Chick-fil-A, gave an overview of the proposed operation, layout, and operation. And then we had a second hearing in January of this year. That was a virtual hearing, and by the way, it's great to be back in person. But Vince Kelly, our engineer, provided testimony with respect to the plans that were submitted, and we had in fact submitted revised plans prior to that last hearing. We then did in fact submit additional revisions to the plans that were dated generally on February 8th of 2022, and what they included were, and Mike outlines this as well in his memo, a fire truck circulation plan, delivery truck circulation plan, and a garbage truck circulation plan. We also revised some of the landscaping to provide 5 cherry trees along the Route 22 right-of-way, removes the stop sign near the Route 22 ingress. There were the areas of the parking lot where you needed the breakup of the planting areas. I think we had one that was 22 parking spaces, one that was 28. We broke that up, and we now comply with the ordinance of having 15 or less. We added some wayfinding signage. We removed some of the parking spaces in the parking lot and added some street trees. We added 8-foot tall evergreens along the rear property line also to increase that buffering. So that's an overview of the revisions that were made and submitted to the board. What we'd like to focus on this evening, and we committed to do at the last hearing, is to have our traffic engineer address both off-site, on-site, and site circulation. So, and again, that probably is going to be what we're going to be presenting this evening. I know it's already a couple hours into your evening. So what I'd like to do, if there's no preliminary questions, to call upon Corey Chase, and we'll have you sworn and
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth?
I do.
Please state your full name, spell your last name, give us your professional affiliation and address.
Certainly, first name's Corey, C-O-R-E-Y. Last name's Chase, C-H-A-S-E. Principal with the firm Dynamic Traffic, located at 245 Main Street in Chester, New Jersey.
all right. And Mr. Chase, if you could please give the board the benefit of your work, educational experience, area of expertise, licenses you hold, whether you've been accepted as a professional engineer before boards or courts of the state of New Jersey.
Certainly, Bachelor's of Science degree in Civil Engineering from the University of Massachusetts, licensed professional engineer in the state of New Jersey, license is currently in good standing, also licensed in 4 other states. I've appeared as an expert in traffic engineering before over 100 municipalities throughout the state, including this township on several occasions.
I would offer Mr. Chase as an expert in the field of traffic engineering.
I may have missed this. Your license is current?
It is, yes.
Okay, great. Any members of the board have any objections to qualifying Mr. Chase as an expert? No objection. Excellent.
Great. Thank you. Right. Mr. Chase, if now you could take us through, I guess you'll do an overview of the site, and then we can move on to the findings in your report.
Mr. Hale, just for the record, is this an item that's previously been submitted as part of the application, or do we need to mark it?
I believe we need to mark this. It's an updated site plan rendering that was prepared by Colliers Engineering, dated March 14, 2022.
Very good. We'll mark that as A7.
Mr. Hale, was this made available to us digitally?
I'm sorry. I apologize. This is A6.
Sorry.
Thank you.
I'd written down A6 as the next one, but I read it as the last one. So, yeah, A6 is correct. I apologize. Thank you.
Yeah. It'll give you the revision date.
Jim. All right.
Just to reorient the board as to the subject property, again, it's the Barnes & Noble Shopping Center, which is located along Route 22 westbound Also has frontage on Hillside Avenue to the east. Again, the subject application proposes the redevelopment of the Barnes & Noble Shopping Center with a Chick-fil-A restaurant with drive-through. We will be maintaining the existing ingress-only and egress-only driveways located along Route 22 westbound. As part of the application, we are consolidating the existing subject property has 2 access points along Hillside Avenue. We'll be consolidating those access points to a single ingress and egress driveway, which will be located opposite Commerce Street. As part of our involvement in the subject application, we prepared a traffic impact study, which was last revised December 28, 2021, previously submitted to the township. We're also involved in the NJDOT access permitting process through the department. The major access permit application has been submitted to the department. We did receive the first round of review comments and have since resubmitted to NJDOT addressing those comments. Those comments are all reflected on the revised site plan rendering, which is before you this evening, marked A6. I'd just like to run the board through the methodology, the findings, and the conclusions which are contained in our traffic impact analysis, as well as go through the site access and site circulation for the subject property. Again, as I mentioned, our primary role was to assess the traffic impacts on the adjacent roadway network as a result of the redevelopment of the subject property with a 5,471 square foot Chick-fil-A restaurant with drive-through. As I did note, the subject property is currently occupied by an approximately 49,000 square foot retail development. To present an extremely conservative analysis in our traffic impact study, we assumed that the Chick-fil-A traffic was new over vacant land. So we could have taken a credit for the traffic that's generated by the existing retail use and just assessed the incremental increase or decrease in traffic as a result of the Chick-fil-A. However, again, to be conservative, we assumed that all the Chick-fil-A traffic was new over vacant land. So the findings in this study are, again, very conservative in nature. Chick-fil-A use is unique in that a high percentage of the traffic utilizing the restaurant is going to be what we refer to as pass-by in nature, meaning that these are vehicles already on the existing roadway network traveling to and from work, to and from other uses that will utilize this facility upon redevelopment. It's a convenience-oriented use. The Institute of Transportation Engineers, which is the state and national standard for developing trip generation projections, identifies a pass-by percentage for a restaurant use of this nature of approximately 50% during the weekday morning and weekday evening peak periods. So roughly half of the traffic that will be entering this facility upon redevelopment are already vehicles along the existing roadway network and not new to the adjacent roadway network. And that's different from the retail development. There will be a certain portion of the shopping center development which would be passed by in nature, but it's also a destination type use in that people are going to that facility specifically to purchase goods, purchase items, and then returning home. So while the shopping center did have a pass-by portion of its traffic, it's much smaller when compared to the fast food restaurant. We did actually provide, just for the board's benefit, a trip generation comparison. It's on table 6, which is located on page 8 of our report. It did provide a comparison between the existing, again, approximately 50,000 square foot shopping center to the proposed Chick-fil-A restaurant. What we did was we compared the new traffic, so the new trips on the adjacent roadway network that aren't currently there. This table excludes the pass-by traffic associated with both developments. As you can see, the subject property is going to generate an increase in traffic when compared to the shopping center during the weekday morning peak hour. As typical, most retail commercial stores have limited activity during the morning period. But when you compare the weekday evening and the Saturday midday peak periods, for comparative purposes, the shopping center would actually generate more new traffic on the adjacent roadway network than the proposed restaurant will upon redevelopment. But again, just to reemphasize, to be conservative, we didn't take any credit for the operations of the existing shopping center when we did our level of service comparison, which follows this analysis in our report, just to be conservative. If you look at table 7 on page 9 of our report, we did a pre- and post-development analysis at several intersections adjacent to the subject property to analyze the overall traffic impacts of the redevelopment of the subject property. We took a look at the intersection of Route 22 westbound and Hillside Avenue, Hillside Avenue and Commerce Street, as well upon redevelopment of the subject property, the introduction of the fourth leg of that intersection, which will be the subject property driveway. We also took a look at the adjacent signalized intersection of Springfield Avenue and Hillside Avenue to the north of the subject property, as well as the Route 22 westbound intersection with the egress driveway. So we go out and do traffic counts during typical peak periods, unique to the time that we're currently in. We also take a look at historical traffic volumes for those intersections as well to see if there have been any influence on the existing prevailing traffic conditions from the pandemic. That comparison is summarized on Table 1, which is located on page 3. So what we found is actually the AM and the Saturday traffic counts were actually higher than pre-pandemic traffic counts. But the weekday evening traffic counts were slightly lower, about 10% lower than pre-pandemic counts. So the weekday evening traffic counts were actually adjusted up by approximately 10% to account for that reduction, which may or may not be attributed to the pandemic. But the weekday morning and the Saturday counts were actually above pre-pandemic conditions, so they weren't factored necessarily to adjust for those conditions. As you can see, again on Table 7, which is located on page 9 of our report, we did do a pre- and post-development analysis to look at the overall traffic impacts of the adjacent intersections and check for any degradations in level of service as a result of the additional traffic on the adjacent roadway network. As you can see, when comparing the operational conditions from the no-build, which is the future conditions without the development of the subject property, to the build, which is future conditions with the subject property, trip generation, traffic added onto it, there are no degradations in level of service as a result of this development. So the adjacent intersections are going to continue to operate at the levels of service as they do today, again, even conservatively without taking credit for the existing shopping center use on the subject property. We found that the Route 22 westbound intersection with the subject property egress driveway would operate at acceptable level of service, D or better, during each of the peak periods. Again, we did submit a major access permit to the New Jersey Department of Transportation. We did receive the initial round of review comments. I would characterize them as being relatively minor in nature. There were no wholesale changes requested to the access design or on-site circulation. Some of the comments were similar to those comments raised by Mr. Disco and Mr. Troutman as far as the operations of the ingress driveway and some additional signing and striping that they wanted to see reflected to ensure that the drivers entering from Route 22 westbound had the right-of-way upon entering the site and wouldn't be forced to yield to any traffic utilizing those internal circulation aisles. So those comments, as I mentioned, have been addressed. We have formally resubmitted to NJDOT. The revised rendering, which is presented before you this evening, also reflects the addressing of those comments. Just to provide the board with the benefit of the on-site circulation, so when you enter the subject property from Route 22 westbound, there's a spine road which essentially bisects the site and traverses from the southern portion of the property, which fronts on Route 22 westbound, to the northeastern portion of the property, which fronts on Hillside Avenue. What this does is it provides a clear and direct path for vehicles entering the site from Route 22 to access the drive-through stacking area. You do also have the ability, upon entering the site, to make a left-hand turn and then make a right-hand turn to the parking, which is located directly in front of the building, to accommodate any customer parking. What this spine road does is it separates the customers parking wishing to enter the subject property and dine in the facility from those vehicles wishing to enter the drive-through stacking area. So from a site circulation standpoint, it represents a substantial benefit in that we're separating those parking maneuvers and not requiring the drive-through traffic to traverse through the parking area. So anybody parking, walking, wishing to enter the restaurant isn't required to conflict with those vehicles entering the drive-through facility. The subject property will provide 2 dedicated drive-through stacking lanes as well as a dedicated bypass lane that completely goes around the drive-through. So if you end up in the drive-through queue and you wish to egress, there is a dedicated bypass lane which will bypass both the order point as well as the pickup point. The drive-through egress does line up directly with the egress onto Route 22. Again, another design benefit in that those vehicles exiting the drive-through facility will be easily allowed to access the Route 22 egress point and aren't required to further circulate the site to get back onto Route 22 westbound. So we see that as a benefit as well. Again, as I mentioned previously, we are consolidating the existing access points. The site today does currently have 2 full movement driveways along Hillside Avenue. We will be consolidating that into a single full movement driveway, which will align opposite Commerce Street. That's consistent with good access management principles and consolidating the number of curb cuts upon redevelopment of the subject property. So we see that as a benefit to the adjacent roadway network as well. As part of NJDOT's review, they did ask for some signing and striping upgrades at the Hillside Avenue intersection with Route 22 westbound. They asked us to install dedicated right turn arrows, some additional striping and signage indicating no left turns are permissible at that. Obviously, Route 22 is divided in that section. You're only allowed to turn right to access Route 22 westbound. They just asked for some additional one-way, do not enter, right turn only signage and striping, which the applicant is willing to comply with as part of the DOT application to just further emphasize the turning movements that are permitted at that intersection. So that's an improvement, again, to the adjacent intersection of Route 22 westbound and Hillside Avenue that would be made as part of this application. The drive-through stacking will accommodate 39 cars in stacking. My firm has actually done research counts at several existing Chick-fil-A restaurants in the state of New Jersey. We've actually studied 4 existing restaurants. And these were studied actually during the pandemic. Dine-in was open at these restaurants during that time, but obviously the pandemic has changed how people utilize these facilities, and it's certainly weighed more heavy on the drive-through operations. So the drive-through queue studies that we did during those times, while the dine-in was open, I would certainly characterize those results as conservative, in that the predominant customer base was using drive-through operations at that time. So the average drive-through queue we saw during a weekday and during a Saturday peak period was between 28 and 29 vehicles. So again, we are designing to accommodate 39 vehicles in our drive-through queue, which exceeds the research counts that we've conducted at several existing facilities within the state. So, we determined that to be sufficient, and that it'll be able to capture all of the drive-through queue within the stacking area. And again, one benefit too is in the event that drive-through queuing was ever to spill out of this area, the entrance to the drive-through facility is located approximately 300 feet from the Route 22 access and approximately 150 feet from the Hillside access. So it's well removed from both access points in such a manner that we wouldn't anticipate drive-through stacking to ever be an issue or encumber the on-site circulation. The truck circulation plans were submitted for a WB50 delivery vehicle as well as a refuse vehicle and fire truck. Those plans were submitted to the board. I also have them mounted on an exhibit. If the board would like to review those plans, I can certainly present them. Sure. These were previously submitted, so I don't believe they need to be marked.
Just explain what they are so that the record is clear what you're referring to.
Certainly.
Thank you. If they're part of the record, but just, yes.
So the first plan that I'm referring to is entitled Delivery Truck Circulation Plan. It was prepared by Colliers Engineering, dated February 8th, 2022. This depicts the WB50 delivery vehicle circulation. Again, as Mr. Martinez testified to previously, the site experiences approximately 4 tractor-trailer deliveries per week. Those occur when the restaurant's closed. The truck will enter the site via Route 22 westbound, and the proposed or the reutilization of the existing right turn ingress driveway. It'll make a left turn and proceed to the front of the Chick-fil-A restaurant, where it will unload via hand truck into the existing restaurant. Again, the subject restaurant's closed, so it's not going to impact any of the parking or impact any of the customer utilization of the site. Upon completing its delivery, it'll utilize the right turn egress driveway to exit the subject property back onto Route 22 westbound. The next plan that I'll refer to, my apologies, is the garbage truck circulation plan. Again, it's sheet 1 of 1, prepared by Colliers Engineering, dated February 8, 2022. Similarly to the WB50 design vehicle, the garbage truck circulation plan shows the vehicle entering the subject property from the Route 22 westbound driveway, circulating northeast along the Spine Road before turning left and circulating back in a southwesterly direction to access the dumpsters. Upon accessing the dumpsters, the garbage truck would back up and then do a clockwise circulation around the parking area located to the northeast of the Chick-fil-A building, traverse south towards the exiting the subject property along the Route 22 westbound driveway. The final vehicular circulation plan is the fire truck circulation plan, again, 1 of 1, prepared by Colliers Engineering, dated February 8th, 2022. Due to the fact that it's an emergency vehicle, we show the fire truck entering the subject property from both the Route 22 driveway as well as the Hillside Avenue driveway, circulating the site, accessing close to the building, and then also the ability to exit the site onto Route 22 westbound. So we believe, I know Mr. Disco and Mr. Troutman have had a chance to review the site circulation exhibits. I'd certainly be happy to answer any questions that they have on the site circulation exhibits, any questions that the board may have on the site circulation exhibits, or the site plan, the traffic study. And Mr. Hale, if you feel that I may have missed anything on direct, I'd be happy to expand upon my direct testimony if you see fit.
No, I think that covers the items that are outlined in your report. So.
Thank you. Okay, I'll start with questions from board members.
First, I want to refer to the fire circulation plan. Say, God forbid, there's a fire in the kitchen. Kitchen is located, nearest the drive-through, obviously. How are we getting a fire truck back there? I've seen the circulation plan. Nothing goes behind the restaurant.
You're correct, it doesn't. The double drive-through access does provide a sufficient width for you can see the fire truck as it enters the site from the Route 22 driveway. It travels in a northeasterly direction before making a left turn. There is a striping line that designates between the double drive-through stacking lanes and the bypass lane. There is sufficient width there to accommodate a fire truck should it be required to circulate towards the rear of the building.
I'm sorry, with where? Sorry. That was loud. With where enough?
It's still a good question.
With where, did you say?
There is sufficient width between, so you have 3 lanes of traffic right here. You have 2 lanes for the drive-through, plus you have a dedicated bypass lane. There is striping which separates the double drive-through lanes from the bypass lane. There is sufficient width here.
To get a fire truck in there and make the turn. And then there's, what is that right in the middle there? Yep, what is that?
That's the order canopy.
So the fire truck would have to stop at the order canopy.
There is sufficient width here for a truck to bypass the canopy.
So your testimony is that once the truck makes the turn, there's the order canopy that covers 2 lanes.
Correct.
There's still the third lane plus the striping.
Okay.
Okay.
And it could continue all the way past the canopy. Sorry.
Again, it opens up as you get towards the front. There are separate left and right turn lanes. As you exit the drive-through again, there's a striped island in the middle. It's just striping the truck could traverse straight through.
Okay.
Exit the site, back out onto 22 West.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions?
Yes. So the plan changes from the dual exit, the singular exit, which directly is across the street from Commerce. Is that correct?
That's correct. In existing conditions, I know it's tough to see because the rendering is overlapping the aerial. You can actually see the existing driveway, which I'm currently circulating, which is to the south of Commerce, and then a second existing access point, which is to the north of Commerce.
And the new driveway is literally even with Commerce, correct? Correct. So you don't mind if
I don't mind at all.
Sorry. So I'm guessing you guys went out there and you saw that there are at times traffic coming from Commerce onto Hillside in either direction, as well as traffic coming down Hillside and off of Route 22. Coming off of 22 right there, someone's coming off of 22, going 45, 50 miles an hour. If there were cars that were suddenly stopped trying to make a right into this proposed driveway, do you see any issues with that?
I believe you mean a left turn?
Yeah, I'm sorry. No. If they're coming down Hillside, yeah, they're making a right.
Towards 22?
Yeah, they're making a right towards 22 into Chick-fil-A. And if they were pulling out of Commerce, maybe they're going to Chick-fil-A, and they're trying to make a left onto Hillside, and people are coming off. Do you see what I'm getting at?
I do.
Yeah,
That's a good
okay.
question. So we pulled the accidents for the intersection of Hillside and Commerce for the last 4 years. There was only actually one accident there in the last 4 years.
That's because there wasn't a driveway.
I was just going to say there wasn't
There wasn't an opening there.
There wasn't an opening there.
Understood, but the intersection of Hillside Avenue and Commerce exists. So we pulled the intersections for the intersection of Hillside and Commerce Avenue to see if there was an accident history there that would throw up a red flag and say, there's already an existing accident history here. Maybe we shouldn't put a driveway directly across.
What about to the two Barnes and Noble entrances?
We did. We actually pulled all those accidents.
Is there more than one, or?
We pulled all those accident reports as well. There were no accidents.
now, I believe, there are two to Barnes & Noble now?
No, I know there are two to the Barnes and Noble now. You got one by the bank,
Right. And then
You got
one.
one right by the assisted living facility.
Right, so just like to get that on the record, the existing ingress egress 2 at Barnes & Noble with Commerce, overall, the history shows one accident
That was the
at Commerce. So if we're looking at all 3 points, there's one accident at Commerce historically. Thank you.
And just to give the board a benefit to, what we look at when we redesign a site like this. So right now you have 3 offset intersections. So you have Commerce, which intersects Hillside at a T intersection, nothing opposite currently. Then you have the 2 access points to the shopping center, which intersect Hillside. So you're basically creating all these offset intersections independent of one another. When we go through and we look at the redevelopment of sites like this, the ideal situation is that you create a 4-way intersection. It's already an existing 3-way intersection, so people are accustomed to vehicles turning at that point. Providing the 4th leg doesn't create an additional intersection along Hillside where you're now talking about drivers stopping at multiple curb cuts along Hillside Avenue, which you have today, where you have the existing driveway to the north of Commerce and the existing driveway to the south of Commerce. So by consolidating that and forming a 4-leg intersection, from a traffic engineering and an access management standpoint, it's actually viewed as an improvement over existing conditions.
So thank you, but what do you say to the proposed increase in traffic, given the fact that I'm guessing this new restaurant is going to generate quite a bit more than the bookstore?
If you look at it from a retail standpoint, again, it was a shopping center. There were multiple uses in there. I know it's varied what the uses were at times. There was a pharmacy in there. I think there was a GameStop in there at one time. There were some things in there
Yes.
over the years.
I don't think any of those things, though, respectfully, might generate as much interest as a brand shiny new restaurant that a lot of people we know like to use elsewhere.
Certainly. What I will tell you, though, when we look at these things, the tenants of that retail facility could change. You could get another commercial tenant in that facility that was a higher generator than a bookstore. Because it's designated as a shopping center, you could have another retail use go in there that had a much higher traffic demand and could have just gone in there, re-tenanted it, and occupied the facility with the existing access points, the way that they were. So when we look at it, I do get, and I apologize, it's a long-winded answer to your question.
You're fine, you're fine.
So we do consider that when we look at the comparison. What we did, though, was, again, as I mentioned, we didn't take any credit for what was there, and we just assumed it was vacant land.
Mhm.
We added all the Chick-fil-A traffic on top of it, assuming that the site was undeveloped, this is all new traffic to the area. So we did do that level of service analysis at the Hillside Avenue intersection, again, considering this is all new traffic over vacant land. And based on our findings, it's still going to operate at an acceptable level of service. Now, certainly, when we look at this, obviously, just by the nature of the way the site lays out and the way the nature of the adjacent roadway network is, your pass-by traffic is primarily going to be traffic that's along Route 22 westbound. It's also going to be some people that are currently going down Hillside south towards 22, getting on 22 westbound. They may use this facility, utilize the drive-through, and then just get on 22 westbound and no longer utilize the intersection of 22 and Hillside Avenue. So certainly, if you look at our distribution and our traffic volume figures, the new trips are weighted more heavily to the Hillside Avenue intersection to just address the point that you were talking about. And then it's certainly comparatively, especially over vacant land, going to increase the traffic at the Hillside Avenue intersection. And that corresponding traffic was then oriented to the signal at Springfield and Hillside as well. And the results show that there were, even with those conservative considerations, there were still no degradations in level of service, even sending the majority of the new traffic, the non-pass-by related traffic, up Hillside to that signalized intersection.
Okay. Does that take into account time of the day?
It does. So we look at, that's a good question too. So we look at peak periods. So we're focusing on, the worst case commuter hours, the weekday morning commuter hour, the weekday evening commuter hour.
What's a weekday commuter evening hour for you guys?
So it's between 7 a.m. and 9 a.m., between 4:30 p.m. and 6:30 p.m. We take the worst case hour.
So we have, if it's a worst case hour, I would say for over there, in addition to what you're talking about, a worst case hour is probably when Sam Meyer School lets out, which is, if you made a left on Hillside out of Chick-fil-A right now, and you went up Hillside and made a right onto South Springfield, there's an elementary school right there. And at 3:30 in the afternoon, 3 o'clock, for as long as I can remember, I went to elementary school there, there is a traffic line that backs up from the traffic light at the Citgo station, which is at the top of South Springfield and Hillside, and most times all the way down to Mizell Avenue, where it intersects at Milltown Road, which is quite a bit away. And I'm just curious, there's a lot of people that attempt to make a left there. We have had traffic situations in town in the past where people try to buck the yellow line and make the left turn early onto Hillside Avenue, which can create a problem, obviously. How many of these people are going to be trying to make a left going down Hillside Avenue at 3:30 in the afternoon, say, after their kids get out of school, and they want to make a stop at Chick-fil-A? And I'm just curious if that gets factored in at all. I don't know how much of your time you guys spent out there really getting a feel for what's going on in the area. I'm just curious.
And that's a great question, and we certainly do. We look at the worst case in that we're looking at the busiest restaurant times superimposed on the busiest street times. So obviously it's factored around breakfast, lunch, dinner, and lunch on Saturday. Those are the peak times for the restaurant. So certainly there's an uptick in traffic when the elementary school gets out. But when you compare it to the peak of the commuter hour plus the peak of the restaurant on top of that, that evening peak is still going to be a much higher demand than the additional traffic that may occur when school gets out.
Okay.
More questions?
They're formulating.
Okay.
I have a couple.
Yes.
The amount of traffic that comes in off of Hillside, what percentage of the business do you believe is coming in off of Hillside as opposed to Route 22?
So again, as I mentioned, to really be conservative, what we did to develop the trip distribution, trying to determine where patrons were going to be going to and coming from upon redevelopment of the subject property, we did what we call a gravity model, which basically looks at a 5-mile radius around the site, looks at population densities, looks at the major arterial roadways, and then determines where people are going to be going to and coming from. This is just specific to new traffic. The pass-by traffic is obviously anchored by the fact that you're located along 22 westbound. You have a high-volume corridor. That's going to be a lot of captured traffic there. So when we're specifically looking at the new traffic, we did consider the population densities. And again, as I mentioned, we did orient most of the new traffic to be conservative to the Hillside Avenue intersection. So if you look at Figure 6, which is in the appendix of our report, that summarizes the new traffic oriented to and from the subject property. And you can see there's a very limited amount of new trips at the Route 22 westbound driveway. The focus on the new trips is the proposed site access point along Hillside Avenue. So I know your question was what the percentage is. It varies because obviously the pass-by traffic is substantially oriented more to 22. The new traffic was more significantly oriented to Hillside Avenue. And again, it was to really provide a conservative analysis because we knew that anybody coming from Hillside is going to go through the intersection at Springfield. And, we don't want to just assume that all the traffic is going to go in and out the driveway on 22 because it doesn't really provide a fair conservative assessment of the potential impacts on the neighborhood roadways.
So where I'm getting at is if you eliminated that opening and somebody wanted to go to Chick-fil-A, would they just continue on to 22 in your expert opinion and just go into Chick-fil-A off of Route 22?
They could. So you eliminate that driveway and they're going to continue south on 22 or south on Hillside Avenue, get on Route 22 westbound and go in the site driveway. Really, these trips are generated by the neighborhoods adjacent to the site. So it becomes more of a convenience to them to have this driveway along Hillside Avenue, and especially when you're talking about egress trips as well, because focusing everyone to 22 westbound means that they're going to go to the intersection of Hillside, sit in whatever queue is currently waiting to get on 22 westbound, to then just get in and then immediately turn right into the driveway to the subject property. And then to exit the site, if they don't have the ability to exit directly to Hillside, they go down to Springfield, take the jug handle, go up Springfield, and either get back on Hillside or continue, northeast on Springfield Avenue. So really, it's not going to dramatically change the traffic on Hillside because the people that are coming down Hillside Avenue are going to do so regardless, whether they go to 22 and enter the facility or whether they...
Members of the public, you will have an opportunity to speak. Can we please let the witness continue?
Or whether they go directly in that driveway.
So, in your professional opinion, if they eliminated that driveway, would it have a detrimental effect on the business of Chick-fil-A if people had to come down and enter? Are you saying it's just at the convenience of the people that are going there to come in off of Hillside as opposed to will the business be hurt by not coming in and off Hillside? Or
what I'm saying is that it's not going to change the traffic on Hillside. So you eliminate that access point, those people are still going to use Hillside Avenue because they're going to go Hillside Avenue to 22 to get into the site. So you're not, if you were to say we eliminate this driveway and then none of the traffic will use Hillside, that's not a realistic expectation because they still need to use Hillside to get to 22 westbound to get into our site. So what you're doing is you're lessening the burden of the traffic on the 22 westbound intersection with Hillside by allowing these people to bypass that intersection, enter the site directly from Hillside.
my concern is more about the people leaving the site and turning left or going out on 22 and trying to scoot across by the 7-Eleven. And is that a safety? Is that an added safety concern?
So the way our driveways are located, the egress point to Route 22 westbound is located to the west of that existing jug handle. So we're beyond the jug handle.
I'm talking about if people go back out onto Hillside, come out on Hillside, and then scoot across because they don't want to go all the way down and go over the bridge or go down to the next U-turn on 22. I'm envisioning a lot more traffic coming out on Hillside and trying to scoot across by the 7-Eleven.
Sure, and that's a good question. It's a fair question. So, the way that the site's laid out, in that exiting the drive-through aligns directly with the egress driveway on 22, that was done in the manner such that, we want people to exit the drive-through and go directly back onto 22. To exit the drive-through, turn left, recirculate the site, to come up to Hillside, to go down to 22 to try to get to this jug handle. It's such a circuitous route. It is much more direct and more efficient to just exit the site directly onto 22 from the drive-through, from the parking area, go down to Springfield, use the jug handle system to make the U-turn to head back east.
So could that access to Hillside be an enter-only then?
Again, I still, in my professional opinion, based on the analysis that we performed, based on the evaluation of the crash history, it's still a benefit to have that existing egress driveway on Hillside.
And the other question I had is, during the last hearing, I had brought up, when people were coming off of 22 into the parking lot, my concern was also there was a stop sign there, and then people would go through the stop sign, and people coming off of Route 22 would be coming 40 miles an hour, and they'd be possibly broadsided by somebody coming off of 22. I can't see from here. Did you eliminate that ability to come across the entrance from that parking area on the right side there?
There is still cross-access. We're talking about the ingress-only driveway on 22 westbound. You're talking about vehicles entering the site and then accessing that spine road. There are stop-controlled stop signs on both the eastern and western approaches to that driveway. There is a clear line of sight for vehicles in both directions to look at vehicles entering the site from Route 22. The radii on the driveway are such that it's going to require vehicles to slow down to a point where they will be able to see patrons that are parked at either the eastern or western approach. Will have a clear line of sight of those vehicles.
So the person coming out, going west, coming out of that east, the parking lot a little east of the entrance, in order for them to see people coming off of Route 22, wouldn't they have to kind of look behind them at that stop sign to see if somebody's coming off the 22, and how would they come across there?
Parked from here, you're going to be looking directly to your left. You have a line of sight of vehicles entering the site. And again, the radii are such that it requires the vehicle to decelerate enough that they're not going to be entering the site at 40 miles an hour. They're going to be entering at a much lower speed. So the time in which the vehicle has to decelerate will give this patron who's sitting at this stop line, waiting to traverse the site, traveling west, have the ability to clearly see someone entering.
So you don't envision a problem, somebody coming across and getting hit in the side of their car?
I don't, and DOT also reviewed this. We meet their requirement for a 50-foot throat for the proposed driveway. Like I mentioned, DOT issued their initial round of review comments on this, and they didn't have any concerns with that cross aisle being located there.
Those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
One, in your professional opinion, is it more effective on Hillside Avenue to have a dedicated entrance and exit, two cutouts, or is it more effective to have the one cutout making the four-way corner right across from Commerce? And I'm also going to want to ask Mr. Trotman the same thing as well. So I want to hear you, and then
Certainly.
check your work.
Yeah, certainly. In my professional opinion, it's more efficient to provide.
Efficient, I understand, because it's less, but I mean more effective to the driver, more effective to the pedestrian is what I care about.
Sure, and again, consolidating those movements is more effective in that you don't have multiple access points that could potentially cause driver confusion in that they don't know if one's exit only, they don't know if one's enter only. Because you're dealing with a two-way street, you're going to be limited to just signing that, do not enter, one way, things like that. If you provide a traditional four-way intersection, it's more consistent with driver expectancy. It's one pedestrian crossing maneuver across a single access point rather than, while they are just enter and exit driveways, you're still two separate pedestrian crossings. So in my professional opinion, the single enter-exit driveway aligned opposite Commerce is the best case for an access management and access design scenario.
There we go. Jay Troutman on behalf of the board. I was hoping they would change the plan and do this. When I saw the first plans with keeping the two existing Barnes & Noble curb cuts, I didn't suggest it. They did it before I could suggest it. This is what is preferred in traffic engineering. You actually prefer four-way alignment or big spacing. You don't want that no man's land where things are offset and close, because turns begin to overlap and conflict, and you get crashes.
Okay.
I have one. You said earlier you didn't think there would be additional traffic. My concern is coming off of 22, if there's an entrance, okay, people are going to stop to make a left-hand turn into the parking lot. Okay, I don't know if you've driven that road, but when they come off of 22 on that on the exit, they're coming off fast. What stops the backup of cars trying to make a left into the parking lot? Don't you think that's an issue? If those cars are backed up 3 cars? I'm not saying in the waiting line, I'm saying waiting to make a left turn into the actual parking lot.
Sure, and it's a good question as well. You know, just based on the layout of the site visibility, it certainly lends itself to anybody traveling west on 22 to just utilize the ingress driveway on 22. You certainly may get someone that uses the Hillside Avenue driveway to turn left in, but you know, based on our analysis of the site and the adjacent roadway network, those left turns into the site are going to be on a limited capacity.
So the only people using that entrance are coming down Hillside, you're saying?
Yeah, primarily it's going to be people utilizing the driveway coming south on Hillside. We did assume a small portion of traffic would enter, making that left turn movement, but again, it wasn't a significant amount of traffic.
Do you think that when it's busy and people know how Chick-fil-A, the lineups are, that they may figure, well, if I can come in closer on the exit and entrance on Hillside, I'll be able to get into the line faster and they don't have to go traversing the site, and that might be increased traffic because of that when people are familiar with the site?
I still don't, just based on the way the site lays out and the fact that we have the dedicated spine road which directly aligns with the 22 driveway that again feeds into the drive-through, you know, based on the turns required and the adjacent roadway network. In my professional opinion, drivers are still going to tend to utilize the 22 westbound driveway to enter the drive-through, regardless of the fact that the drive-through entrance is slightly closer to the Hillside Avenue exit. You still have to make the right on Hillside, traverse in a northwesterly direction, enter the site, and enter the drive-through. The time lost in doing that, you would be able to access the site from 22 westbound and enter that drive-through queue.
Maybe we should ask our traffic engineer about that.
Sorry. Okay, so any other questions from members of the board for the traffic engineer? Okay, our professionals. We're going to turn it over to you, Mr. Troutman.
Yeah, I'll start. Mr. Chase, there's been talk about vehicles turning onto Hillside from 22 and also turning into the site from 22. The radii will dictate a certain speed on that turn, correct?
That's correct.
So that speed's probably around 20 miles an hour. If you were to look while you were turning one of these and look at your speedometer, you could handle that turn at about 20, I would guess?
Yeah, I would guess that that's on the top end of the speed that you
Top end.
make that turn.
Yes. I mean, that's what I've done. And a lot of the software the traffic engineers use actually has that turning speed in it. They have, based on FHWA studies, they actually put that number in. And I think it's somewhere around 15, depending on.
Yeah,
right turn is 9 maybe, and a left turn's like 15 because you can do it at a higher speed. So that I think that'll throttle down the turning speed. That was the point of that question. At the Route 22 entrance, it's designed so that people entering off of Route 22 will have the right-of-way. They don't have to stop, correct?
That's correct.
Would it be possible, I don't know if DOT made this comment or not, but would it be possible to not have that bar there and that do not enter wording on the pavement? Just because I'd be concerned that drivers might see that bar and think they have to stop, or see that do not enter even though it's backwards and think, oh, maybe I can't come in here. Is that something DOT's making us do, or?
It's not. You know, again, it was just an added benefit to try to reinforce the striping, but if the township feels it would be better suited to eliminate that and just have the clear travel way in. You know, I certainly understand your point, Mr. Troutman, that it could cause driver confusion with the bar there and that someone may think it is a stop bar even though there's no stop sign.
Yeah, let's take a look at that. I'm thinking maybe another arrow, to show people that they can just keep moving through there. And the last thing was on the Commerce alignment. Is it possible to tweak that a little to get it a little more aligned? And the concern would be the left turns out of the site conflicting with the left turns out of Commerce because it's a little offset.
You know, we'll certainly work with Mr. Kelly. I know Mr. Kelly's not here tonight, but work with Mr. Kelly, your office, and Mr. Disco to see if there's something we can do to shift that access point slightly to the north.
Thank you. And just so the board knows, we reviewed all the numbers and all the calculations and the traffic counts and the assumptions that you all just heard about on behalf of the board to make sure it meets and checks out. And it does. I could go through all of that. It's in my memos at some point in the hearing if you want to hear that.
Thank you. Any other questions? No. Okay. Members of the board, any further questions before I open it up to questions from the public? Okay. At this time, I'm going to open it up to questions from the public for the traffic engineer. This is questions of the public. This is not your opportunity to speak overall on your opinions on the application. Yes, that'll be at the close of the testimony this evening. Okay, you may come up. Good evening.
Jacqueline Spencer, SPENCER, 100 Hillside Avenue.
Thank you.
I have a question. Thank you for the overview. I have a question regarding the stacking. You mentioned there's enough room for 39 cars that stack. So how many cars would it take to stack out onto Hillside Avenue or back up onto Route 22?
I don't have those exact numbers. I can tell you that from the drive-through stacking area, it's 150 feet to the Hillside Avenue entrance, and it's 300 feet to the Route 22 entrance.
Okay. You mentioned that you did traffic studies for 4 other locations. For those other locations, since they've been open, have any of them ever stacked outside of the 39 cars?
So unfortunately, several of the existing facilities that we studied do not have the stacking that's proposed at this facility. You know, Chick-fil-A, like any other operator, they are constantly assessing their business, their operations, and looking for ways to make improvements. Part of that improvement is what you see on a facility like this, where you have a substantial drive-through stacking area. You also have 2 dedicated drive-through lanes, as well as the bypass lane. You have the dual order points and the dual fulfillment points. So they're constantly looking for ways to make it better. So, you know, the facilities that were developed 5 years ago, 3 years ago, didn't have drive-through stacking, what we're seeing today.
Okay. So the drive-through stacking, meaning 2 lanes. So does a facility this large have the capacity to serve 1,000 cars a day?
You know, that's more of an operational question. Unfortunately, I don't know how many cars can process through the drive-through.
So there's a location in Watchon, which also has 2. Did you do a study on the Watchon location in terms of how many cars go through that facility on a daily basis?
We didn't study that. That was one of the facilities that we studied the drive-through stacking, though, to get the queue observations.
So you don't know how many cars go through?
I don't know how many cars process through the drive-through a day. I know what the maximum queue was in that drive-through.
Okay. For the 4 locations that you did studies on, has there been traffic studies after they were built to see what the impact has been on the community?
I'm not aware of that now.
Okay. In terms of the location, there is a jug handle. I'm looking at the, I don't know what.
It's A6.
It looks as though there is a jug handle going east right before 7-Eleven where you can then jug handle to go back west. So the people who missed the first entrance to go into Chick-fil-A will likely try to enter through the exit Is there any markings that tell them they can't enter there?
There are. So DOT asked us to put do not enter signs as well as the black and white one-way arrow signs at the driveway. And the angle of the driveway is such that it deters people from trying to make.
Okay. Are you aware that there's a Target down the road that has a similar situation where there's a jug handle in front of the Target and people miss the Target entrance and then enter Target through the exit?
I'm not aware of.
Okay. Okay. Just a couple more. Does the traffic pattern that you talk about coming from Hillside, you mentioned something about you anticipate 50% of the traffic is going to come from existing cars that are passing by. So how many cars are now going to be new coming from Hillside Avenue? I can't remember if you said that.
I didn't, but I could tell you what that number is. And when we do this analysis, we don't talk about daily trips. We focus on the hours, again, because it's the critical peak. So these are numbers during the peak period. The total traffic on Hillside Avenue, additional new traffic is approximately 100 trips during an hour. So, 1 to 2 trips a minute during an hour.
100 trips per hour? So
During the peak hour.
During the peak hour.
That's not constantly an hour.
Okay.
Every hour.
So we're
of the day.
talking 7 to 9. You said 7 to 9.
So the single highest hour between 7 to 9. The single highest hour between 4:30 to 6:30. And then on Saturday we look at the midday, which is 11 a.m. to 2 p.m.
So how about the lunchtime during the day?
So we didn't analyze the weekday lunch because the traffic volume on the adjacent roadway network is lower. So although the site generates a peak during lunchtime, it's not critical when you look at, again, it's the AM commuter, the PM commuter, and then the Saturday, given that it's a retail corridor, there's obviously a lot of shopping and everything's going on. So it's active then as well.
So compared to the Union location, did you look at traffic patterns in the Union location at lunchtime to make any, assumptions about what the lunchtime traffic would be for the new proposed location?
We didn't study the Union location. It's a good point to note that it's there because, obviously that's in the center median along 22. Certainly it's going to favor traffic traveling in the eastbound direction. So I know it's about 2 miles from this facility. So this traffic is obviously going to cater to vehicles traveling in the westbound direction.
You mentioned you have an application in with the Department of Transportation. How many variances, have you requested from the Department of Transportation, or you're waiting for them to approve something before you move forward?
So we submitted a major access permit application. We got their first round of review comments, and we have since resubmitted to NJDOT.
Okay. One of the studies you showed was a truck study or something?
Truck circulation plan?
A truck circulation plan. So are the trucks idling during any point of the evening while they're delivering?
They're not. So the trucks actually shut off while they're delivering. The lift gate that they utilize is electric, so the truck's not required to be on while it's delivering. And the driver uses a hand truck to offload and load material into the store.
Okay. Has there been any consideration for doing a no left turn out of the parking lot onto Hillside Avenue?
Again, there's not, just based on the operational analysis that we did, again, reviewing the accidents, we feel that it can operate in a safe and efficient manner.
So meaning you think people can safely make a left turn out of the parking lot onto Hillside Avenue without causing more traffic?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Couple more. Sorry.
It's okay.
I'm sorry. Accident history. You talked about an accident history of only one from that area. I've lived on Hillside Avenue for 23 years, and some of my neighbors have been there longer than I have. So Hillside Avenue has a lot of accidents, probably not at Commerce Street, but for accidents closer to South Springfield Avenue. Have you looked at any other accidents on Hillside Avenue?
We just focused on the driveway operations to see again if there were any red flags associated with former Barnes & Noble driveway operations or
Okay.
Commerce Street.
Okay. So the Barnes and Noble's location, people go for a longer period of time. I think I heard you, or somebody reported that cars are there for 8 minutes or 7 minutes or something, some number. I can't remember what that was. But how does that compare to someone who's going into a Barnes and Noble's for 20 minutes, for 25 minutes, as opposed to a car that's going in for 8 or 9 minutes? How is that a comparison study?
So, as I mentioned, we didn't take any credit. So we didn't take any credit for the Barnes & Noble. We assumed that the Chick-fil-A traffic was all new over vacant land. Just, for those reasons, to be conservative, to not get into a situation where we're saying, certainly somebody that goes into Barnes & Noble may spend 20 minutes in there, where obviously this is a more convenience-oriented use, so your stay is much shorter. We didn't take any credit for that use, so that we didn't run into that unfair potential.
So I just want to clarify. So of the 4 locations that you've studied in the past, Chick-fil-A doesn't go back and look at what has changed in the area since they've opened?
To my knowledge, I'm not aware of any post-opening traffic studies that have been done. I can certainly check with Mr. Martinez.
I mean, I guess my concern is that, I've heard how Chick-fil-A is friendly to the community, but then you don't go back and check on it. So that's why I'm just concerned, once, another location has gone up, do you look at a year later to see what the impact actually is?
Typically in our industry, we only look at things when it's a problem. So if there's a problem after it opens, they'll always call us back to evaluate, what's going on, what changed from what we had anticipated, and what could potentially be done to mitigate that.
And then finally, I think I heard some assumptions that people coming off of Route 22 are going to slow down to 20 miles an hour to go into a parking lot. Did I hear that assumption?
It's not an assumption. It's really based on the radius of the driveway, the width of the driveway. You can only make that turning maneuver at a certain speed without hitting the curb, unfortunately.
I'm sorry, one more. How many variances for traffic are you requesting?
I'm not aware of any traffic-related variances, Mr. Howell.
Are there, so I know there are variances for signs, drive, lights, fences. Do you know how many
That's outside of my...
That's somebody
level of
else's
expertise.
question.
I'm sorry.
Okay. So there's a lot of variances.
Again, it's...
You don't know.
It's not
All right.
high level of expertise.
All right. So thank you.
Thank you.
Stephanie Matute, 50 Hillside Ave. Yep. Matute, M-A-T-U-T-E. Yep. 50 Hillside Avenue. I have a couple questions here. So with the stops trucking in, parking, eating there, what will be done with trucks idling in the parking lot while they're eating and getting their food?
Well, be done with trucks.
A lot of idling,
we're
yeah.
not designing the site to accommodate trucks.
Mhm.
Mr. Martinez can certainly comment on his experience at other sites, but again, it's really catered more towards passenger vehicles. So anybody on site, there are statewide no idling laws that they would have to comply with. So similar to any other development that was to be constructed, they would have to comply with those regulations.
Okay. And then the traffic that was mentioning, if I did the calculation correctly based on your peak hours, basically the 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the evening, excluding lunch, basically you have like 400 additional cars that you're considering within the peak, right? That's excluding the lunch period, if I did the calculation correctly. The concern is like you're coming off 22, you're going at 20 miles. We're assuming there, you pass the entranceway. I can only imagine what would the U-turns basically look like within that street, trying, I missed my turn, need to go back to Chick-fil-A.
Sure, and that's a good question as well. And again, that dictated how we laid out the site. Given that it is on an angular fashion, the building was positioned in such a manner that you do have the visibility of the actual building as you're approaching it on 22 westbound. You're not just looking for the sign, you'll actually see the building. So you will be able to decelerate, and again, in my professional opinion, safely enter the site from 22 westbound.
Have there been any reported deaths or car accidents, right, due to the Chick-fil-A's post-opening?
I'm not aware of any, ma'am.
And do we know how much traffic creates burglary? Meaning, like, your cars are idling, people in Springfield, right? There's a lot of homes nearby. You know, what would that, like, burglary look like with all the traffic? And
That's definitely outside of my level of expertise, ma'am. I'm sorry.
okay. And then with the lights in the cars at night flashing, I mean, through the windows, but I don't think, right, that's really the trafficking, right? But like the noise, the pollution, but that's not, right?
That's more of the environmental side of things. You know, I handle more of the circulation, the traffic impacts, things of that nature.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chase, would you just make sure you're speaking into the mic when you're answering?
Apologies.
Pull it this way.
Yeah, sorry about that.
David T. Carson Jr., 69 Beekman Road, Summit. My family owns the commercial building at 30 Hillside Avenue. The parking lot for our building is almost directly across the street from the proposed entrance and exit for Chick-fil-A on Hillside Avenue. So that means that cars coming south on Hillside Avenue trying to get into our parking lot, making a left-hand turn, will directly run into Chick-fil-A traffic, and likewise cars turning to the right out of our parking lot who will be competing for space with cars turning left out of the Chick-fil-A parking lot. Mr. Chase, about how many traffic studies have you done for fast food restaurants with drive-thrus?
Well over 100, sir.
Over 100?
Yeah.
And how many of those were for Chick-fil-A?
My office has worked on approximately 30 Chick-fil-A restaurants in New Jersey, New York, and Pennsylvania.
And the Chick-fil-A we're considering here would have a capacity in its drive-through queue for about 39 cars. How many traffic studies have you done where there was a larger capacity?
Larger drive-through stacking?
Yes.
Yeah, this is certainly Chick-fil-A is on the forefront of providing an exceptional amount of drive-through queuing. So it's not something we typically see with other fast food users.
Have you done any traffic studies where the queue was greater than 39?
We're looking at some other Chick-fil-A facilities which have a similar drive-through storage, but not for another fast food user, no.
The Chick-fil-A we're talking about would have about 173 parking spaces. Have you done any traffic studies for a drive-through where there were more than 173 parking spaces?
No.
The Chick-fil-A we're talking about would have 90 indoor seats and 20 outdoor seats. Have you done traffic studies where there were more seats?
Yeah, we've certainly done traffic studies for fast food establishments that had more than 100 seats.
With 90 indoor seats and 20 outdoor seats, would that be top quarter, top 10%, or
No.
for drive-through restaurants?
For a fast food restaurant with drive-through, no, it's not. Certainly you see other fast food establishments, McDonald's, Burger King, have similar seating capacity.
And the project site here is 4.57 acres. Have you done any traffic studies for drive-throughs where there was a bigger project site?
It's certainly on the larger side for a drive-through facility, and we obviously see that as a benefit. It gives us more space on site to accommodate the drive-through stacking and things of that nature to make it better. Typically, we're on the opposite end where we're looking at much smaller sites and really maximizing the impervious and other things to try to make it work.
Would this be in the top 10% then of the?
For a fast food restaurant with drive-through, yeah, it's certainly on the larger side for site development.
If you could turn to page 7 of your report, and I'll quote from the relevant portion. Trip generation projections for the project were prepared utilizing trip generation research data published by the New Jersey Department of Transportation under the Land Use Code 934, fast food restaurant with drive-through window. And my understanding is the data in this Land Use Code 934 is based on studies conducted by the Institute of Transportation Engineers. Is that correct?
Yes.
So the Code 934 formula is based upon national average numbers, right? In other words, these would include drive-through restaurants from Florida to Alaska, cities, suburbs, rural areas, everywhere, right?
Correct.
And there's no way to filter out from this Code 934 data drive-through restaurants that were from rural or low population density areas, is there?
So the methodology that we use to generate the trip generation projections, it's consistent with both the national and state standards for developing traffic projections.
I'm sorry, but my question is there any way to filter out from the data that supports the Code 934 formula data that comes from low population density areas?
So as part of their review, and when they're publishing the trip generation manual, the IT evaluates the data points that they get. They're not going to take a data subset from a very rural area that has a very low trip generation. They want representative sites that are typical throughout the United States. So I think you're suggesting that the data is skewed because there may be some rural data subset in there that's making it lower?
I'm not suggesting that it's skewed. I'm suggesting that it includes cities, suburbs, rural areas, that it is comprehensive, covering sites throughout the United States, and so therefore some of those sites would be in areas that have a much lower population density than the Springfield area.
So they actually break it out into two separate categories. There's general urban, suburban, and then there's rural. So we utilize the general urban, suburban data.
The Code 934 data comes from many types of fast food drive-in restaurants, right? So it's obviously not just Chick-fil-A. It would include Popeyes and KFC and McDonald's and Burger King and things like that, right?
That's correct.
QSR Magazine has done a survey ranking 17 drive-through restaurants, and they ranked Chick-fil-A as number one, as America's favorite, which is impressive.
I'm sorry, the survey was from what?
It was from QSR Magazine.
Quick service restaurant.
Thank you.
But there's no way to filter out from, again, the Code 934 data drive-through restaurants that are much less popular than Chick-fil-A, is there?
There's not, no.
The Code 934 data takes into account the square footage of the restaurant building, right?
Correct.
But it doesn't take into account other indices relating to size, like the maximum number of cars in the drive-through, or the parking spaces, or seats, or the lot size.
It does not, no.
We've talked about how Chick-fil-A is more popular than other drive-in restaurants, and how about how the Springfield Chick-fil-A would be much bigger than the average drive-through restaurant on various indices of size, and we're in a very high population density area. So taking these factors into account, population, density, size, and the popularity of Chick-fil-A as compared to other restaurants, wouldn't it be reasonable to consider that the traffic volume generated by the Springfield Chick-fil-A would be higher than the average for the Code 934 restaurants?
So we prepared traffic studies in this fashion for all different types of land uses, regardless of whether they're fast food, retail, commercial, residential. They're all prepared utilizing the Institute of Transportation Engineers as well as NJDOT published data. So they're all prepared in the same manner. So, you know, you're comparing apples to apples when you're comparing sites across the state. You're not getting into a situation where you're looking at specific demographics that could then be debated, and then Mr. Troutman and I would have to go back and forth as to whether or not he agreed with my assessment of the demographics and what those impacts may be. You know, we do this really so that they're compared equally across the state. It's a set standard, it's a set state standard, it's a set national standard, and that's what, as traffic engineers, that's what we comply with. That's how we prepare all our reports.
Would you agree that the number of cars going through the Chick-fil-A would be one piece of information that would be very helpful in making a forecast of the gross revenue that's generated by the restaurant?
You know, the financial aspect of the operations of the restaurant is definitely outside of my level of expertise.
As an expert, you have no opinion whether the car traffic that's going through the restaurant would be a relevant factor that would go into the forecast of gross revenue?
I don't, because again, it's not my professional opinion, but in my opinion, it's more to the amount of people in each car, the amount of food that's being ordered per car. If you have a single occupancy car, they're going to order less food than if you have a multiple occupancy car.
Well, yes, that all is true. But I would think the number of cars would make a difference as well. Did you ask Chick-fil-A whether they had made such a traffic projection for this particular location as part of their forecast of what their gross revenues might be?
I did not.
Why not?
For the reasons that I just mentioned previously, and that the methodology in which we prepare these traffic impact studies is dictated by the state and the national standards. So when I prepare the study, I know going in what the metrics I'm going to use already are.
So I think you're saying you've got a one-size-fits-all methodology where you use the Code 934 data regardless of the size of the restaurant or the population density of the area or the particular franchise involved or any other factors. It's a one-size-all methodology, and you never deviate from using the Code 934 data?
The methodology is set. The trip generation calculations are based on the building square footage. So as the size of the restaurant increases or decreases, those trip generation values increase and decrease as well.
But the square footage of the restaurant doesn't vary so much. From what I read online, the average square footage of a Chick-fil-A restaurant is 4,500 square feet. This one is, I forget, 5,471, something like that. This one's about 21% bigger in terms of square footage. But in terms of the lot size, it's huge. It's about 3 times the average. In terms of parking spaces, it's far greater than the average. And compared to certainly other franchises, other fast food companies, the queue line is much, much bigger. So these are indices of size that are not really captured by the square footage. Wouldn't you agree?
The building